Welcome back, everybody. It's time for our solo match. We had yesterday our first half of the round of 16. Today, we're doing the second half. Keep in mind, this is a double elimination format now, so the players who lost yesterday are not eliminated, and the players who will be eliminated today from the group will have another chance against the 4 players who lost yesterday.
Yep, you described it perfectly. Our players wanted to pretty much stay in the top 4 and keep moving on, advancing into the finals, where if they win, they have a grand prize pool of 10 million won, Korean won, which is nice. And of course, they get a nice little title in history for themselves.
Yeah. Massive. To be the first champion of Kart Rider Drift would be massive. We are still, of course, in the preseason, but a champion is a champion. As you could see, the players who advanced yesterday were all of our pro team players. All of the teamless jersey wearers will be sent down to the losers match. Today's group, I think, is a little bit less defined in terms of who our favorites are, but we do kind of have a tier list in terms of who has won a title, who has been in a finals, and then who has had neither, right? And I think that's kind of the line that we're drawing today across these players in terms of historically who have been the favorites. But there's a lot still on the line. Is yesterday Cool set 3 new track records.
Yeah, I mean, Cool winning 5 out of 6 tracks as the first place finish. You cannot come in more dominating than that, Cool. He's setting a new milestone right now for players to try to catch up to.
Yeah, look at his pose as well. He's just saying, I'm bringing the track record down, faster times.
Yeah, for sure. And for the other tracks, you can see a lot of domination coming in from the players of Live Sandbox and Guangdong Freaks. You know, the top 2 teams that we were looking at, and individually, they're great as well.
Yeah. It's crazy that Live Sandbox hold almost half of all of the track records. And
yeah.
This is that split I was talking about earlier where NEAL and Perfect are Kart Rider League champions, right, in terms of the solos. Then JiMin, Knock, and Spell have all had at least one finals appearance. But for Speed and Ding, they're still looking for their first opportunity.
Yeah, Speed and Ding definitely the underdogs of this group of round of 16. And I think that so far in the team matches, they have shown their capabilities, but when you're up against such strong adversaries, then it's definitely harder to make a name for yourself and a good position.
It certainly is, as we're going to break down each and every player who will be participating in this group, starting off with NEAL, defending champion, the player who has been so successful. Look at his finishes. This is, by the way, just for the season. As the top first place finishes, top podium finishes, and he was, until yesterday, the best first to second leading points. He was 16 points ahead of second place.
And here next we have the player Speed, the first place finisher of Group D. He is the only player from the Team Sensation to be able to advance to the round of 16. So he's pretty much representing his team at this point, and hopefully he'll be able to continue on his dominance.
That's the hope for Sensation fans. Ding will be the player we take a look at next, who has 3 first place finishes this season and has been just overall a pretty consistent player. And he's shouting out Kosu and Luning, I'm going to make it to the winners for you, as 2 of the players who did fall short yesterday. So definitely friends with those guys and wants to give them their best.
Yeah, Ding so far has been doing better in KDL than even in the normal Kart Rider League so far. Our next player is JiMin from Live Sandbox asking Teacher NEAL, did you see my straight boost? Which is kind of like, you know, you're able to, you know what, you probably know this one better than me, Wolf.
It's hard to explain this, but it's the ability, of course, to use your boost and as you're straightening up and utilize it in a way that's very effective. And I'm not going to get into the weeds of this one, really, but he's doing very well with those. And Jikbu is a Korean term for that straight boost. As Knock here, observer mode, no, just bumping without thinking. He's just teasing the fans who are saying that he's like a god. He can see everything. He's all-knowing and omniscient. He's like, nah, I'm actually just bumping. I just do what I want. He's got this banner here. Very modest, but I think Knock, definitely one of the dark horses of this group, a very strong player.
Yeah, Knock always managed to find the higher rankings. Is no surprise as we see SUNGBIN now. He is saying, I'm the 3rd oldest here by age. Hey, youngster, Hyungs will advance first. There's a term in Korean for this. It's kind of like, it's like when you care so much about your age and you keep like trying to make that your trait.
Yeah.
Called gonde.
Yeah, it's not a positive term. It's kind of like boomer. It's not exactly boomer, but it has the same connotation as boomer in English as perfect. I just love this moment, and a player who is, I think, one of the ones that you look at here going, okay, this guy's accomplished and achieved a lot. He's been a great player, a part of Kwangdong's roster for speed, and he is setting up a lot of collisions as well. You can see he actually has the highest collision rate and still able to qualify. That's saying a lot about his ability to recover. The guy is very strong, and I think not as same as Nock in terms of dark horse potential, but definitely up there.
Yeah, he is the only one who is without a team, so we hopefully get to see some things that are perfect. But of course, we have Spell next. I want to be good at playing Kart Rider Drift. Same. Honestly, I'm having so much struggle, and I relate to Spell.
This is a cry from help, a cry for help from Peter here. He's like, please. I just got my license.
I literally just got it. So now I can finally play some of the tracks these pros have been playing on for forever. And my goodness, there's so many shortcuts that you need to know about.
Certainly. Perfect fan here.
Right.
Perfect's last finals appearance was in 2020, so it's been 3 years since he's been able to make it there. It would be a great story for him to make another return to the finals here after that 3-year gap in Kart Rider Drift. Got a lot of fans here, despite being, you know, a player who hasn't been able to live up to some of the hype, I think. And as we move into our first race here, Village Boom Hill Tunnel, we'll see if NEAL is going to start things off with the lead or if we're going to see an upset here in our first race. Off we go. NEAL with such fantastic position in his group, taking first place multiple times and having the biggest differential between first and second in the group stage. We'll see if he can start off with a bang here once again. As we talked about in team speed, even if he has a slow start, his finishes are where you really need to watch out.
Yeah, our players are just colliding with each other all over the place right now because everyone was within draft range, but now coming out of that tunnel, we do see that 1, 2, 3 once again being contested. Everyone is on high heels.
Yeah, Spell here in first right now, but as you can see, as you just mentioned, with everyone being this close, a lot of collision here. We do not have anybody putting points in acceleration like we saw Insu do yesterday, so
right.
You know, these collisions are actually more detrimental, as DDing is really trying to avoid any collision he can here while also sitting up defensively as we're all in draft range here right now. As knocking at the door here, Spell and Ding neck and neck as SUNGBIN is going to try to take an outer line here potentially on this next turn to grab a pass.
A consolidation forming into the top 4 here. Ding still leading out so far. I can really see that Spell is waiting for the perfect opportunity to use the draft because he wants to overtake not now but later when there's so many players right behind him.
All right, here we go. Ding maintaining that first place. Nock with one last attempt and he's
there
successful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nock finds that draft angle at the right time.
I don't care if he says that it's just all a coincidence, he just bumps into people. This guy sees the game in ones and zeros, man. He sees the legends of Kart Rider, the drift marks on the track. Except it's his drift marks on the track that people are seeing behind him as he crosses first place.
And if you see his pose, it kind of looks like he's emphasizing his big brain, and he absolutely had a big brain moment there, coming in at a clutch moment, such a close time if you look at it, almost 0.1 second difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could approach those final corners on Boom Hill Tunnel, but the most common approach is to actually just go diagonally when you go through those so you can minimize the chances of collision and you don't actually have to chance taking a riskier drift where if you hit a collision with one of the other players, you're going to get set way back. But he actually has took the tightest possible turn there at the final moment and was able to get ahead. As he's just teasing us now.
Yeah, the reason why he's called the Super Observer mode, definitely showing why so far. And we're waiting on him to pick the next track. I wonder what it's going to be. Yeah,
that's a good question. As, you know, we haven't seen, you know, a ton of these underdogs winning this early to know where we're going to go. Like, sometimes you know where NEAL wants to go, for example, but we haven't seen Nock pick a map in a while. It is going to be Rio de Janeiro here for our second race.
Kicking off round number 2 of solo match, it was Nock who was able to get in that first place position last track. But keep in mind that NEAL holds the best track record right now in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, very difficult name to say oftentimes for us here on the English broadcast, but you and I both shared the burden once here.
Yep.
As NEAL and Speed are neck and neck here this time around. This is a one-lap track, of course, so you can see the attention here on the first place runners. As you can see at the back of things, you do have Nock, our player who did won the first track. There's still a lot of race to go here, but it's a relatively short track as mentioned. And NEAL, he pulled out all the stops here early as we're going to have this big U-turn now. And he maintains the lead. It's one of the trickier places to actually hold on to that advantage.
The record setter proving to be why his drifts have been perfectly angled, how he's been able to maneuver around these corners with absolutely no problem at all. Now we see Spell and Nock coming in. Of course, Nock, we keep mentioning him as a player where he just kind of stays out of the group and the body fights, and he just looks for the perfect timing to enter that first place.
Yeah, he just avoids everybody. He sees the angles. He's going to need a big draft here off of Speed. Can he maintain it here and get that pass? We're looking for Speed. Great defensively.
Oh my!
And it was so close, but Speed will actually take the first place spot. But for Nock, man, back-to-back here in top 2. He's going to move up to 17 points now. And for Speed, a huge departure from his first race. He's actually going to move up to 11 himself. So we do have 2 clear front runners now.
A consistency definitely forming here already in the solo match. Nock proving to be a formidable opponent. NEAL came in also 3rd place. He boosted almost Nock up into 1st place, I thought, but Speed was able to still maintain that lead just barely by 0.05 seconds.
Yeah, Speed's positioning was really good, and what was most incredible about it to me was how great Nock was at actually forcing that that final turn. It looked like he was actually maybe going to do it, and that collision you mentioned with NEAL did come through. But Speed just didn't falter. He didn't mess it up, and it got pretty intense there on that final turn. And he blocked it. He blocked the advance there, even with the draft coming through.
Right. And then we have a fan for Speed coming in. They want a speedy end of their day. I can't really blame anyone for wanting that, but so far in the standings, we have JiMin, Spell, and Perfect, each sitting at 3-2-1 points, and rank 4 already is at 8 points. So you have to keep your eyes on JiMin, Spell, and Perfect. They need to find the comeback angle now. It's already too late if they keep dragging it out.
Definitely true. JiMin, a player who I think really surprised a lot of people with his qualification for the round of 16 since he is the item ace, but looking good up until this point. We'll see if he can turn things around. We're moving into our 3rd track, Mine Gold Rush. Moving into our 3rd round here for the 2nd part of the round of 16 here. So far, Nock in the lead, holding on to that 17-point and 6-point rather over Speed differential. As NEAL is going to be the one in the lead here at the beginning of the lap.
NEAL so far, he's held pretty much the most ideal lines, not losing momentum at all in his drifts. And you can see that's why he's maintaining that 1st place position, even increasing that distance between him and Speed now.
Yeah, just trying to get out of draft range here as we're going to move into some of these more aggressive turrets as we move into the mines themselves here. Speed taking the lead, but NEAL taking a very aggressive inner here, chaining that drift into both turns, but isn't able to get the pass.
Yeah, but he manages to get up onto that stadium, and now we go into our final portion of the 1st lap. We have SUNGBIN, DDing, and Speed leading the pack with Perfect right behind. NEAL did fall behind all the way to 8th place, a collision, bad one.
Really bad one there from him, and he tried to take a very aggressive inner there outside of the portal. And outside the portal is where you have the most agency, where everybody's lined up like that. If you take the right RNG call, like, or am I going to be alone here? You can get a huge lead, but unfortunately he took too big of an inner, hits the wall, and now his chances of making top 4 in this race are very slim. He's moved up back to 6 here though, but knows the difference between him and DDing is pretty massive now.
Yep, and we see DDing and Speed pretty much within draft range of each other. Nock coming in as well. We know this guy, he's like the hyena that comes in at the perfect time, as we see the players taking the optimal lines here. No real bad mishap happening to anyone so far.
Yep, here comes that portal the 2nd time around. We'll see if NEAL can actually make that aggressive turn happen this time around. I mean, we might not see, because we're at the end here. DDing massively in the lead, and no one else can catch him. And that's just going to be that. Was going to give NEAL a chance to redemption here on this one, but he's just too far behind. The story is not about him, and in fact, he will finish in 8th place here. And NEAL really struggling tonight in terms of what we had in terms of expectations. I think most people would put him up in at least top 3, saying this guy's probably going to get out of this group no matter what, but top 3 is what you expect. And unfortunately, he is towards the bottom of the standings right now. This is going to be a -1 to his score here with an 8th place finish. Speed up here getting a +7. You can see our cumulative scores right now. We had a top 2 that was very clear. Now we have a clear top 3.
Yeah, so JiMin, he was about 6th place before this race, and now he's up all the way in 3rd place because he finished the race also at 3rd place. So that was a huge boost to his rankings. Now, a lot of the players like NEAL, they are definitely struggling only with around a 7 to 8 points range, and that is pretty much where the 4, 5, 6 is consolidated.
Yeah. It is very tight there in the middle. It's going to be about these next few races, and we're moving into World Tour Terracotta Twister to see who's going to push that lead further on our 4th round.
Kicking off round number 4 of solo match, Nock firmly in the lead with 21 points.
Yeah, Terracotta Twister has been kind of like the Dust 2. It's been the final destination of Kart Rider Drift League. It's the one that we see all the time in speed mode for team. It's a track that everyone is extremely familiar with here, so I think this is where you could really show your stuff.
So far, Nock and Speed, they're the ones absolutely in the lead so far. It's just SUNGBIN and NEAL trying to do the catch-up, but there's a lot of distance to be closed. They don't have the draft distance. Wow, SUNGBIN getting a big knock into the wall.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, dropping back quite significantly as Nock is taking these turns very aggressively here. He's got a nice lead, and he is just going to continue to push it here as NEAL, once again, hot on his heels. But if NEAL tries to aggressively fight for first here and makes another mistake, man, his chances of getting out of this group, this 8-player section of our round of 16, drops significantly.
Wow. NEAL manages to find the draft angle. Now he's firmly in 1st place, and you can see he's taking a different line from the different players because he doesn't want to give that draft advantage. However, JiMin now coming in, he manages to find the window.
Yeah, both NEAL and JiMin tied at 8 points, like you mentioned, just on the edge of that qualification. So if both of them end up in top 3, it's great for them, but getting 1st place, getting that extra 10 points is so massive for them. As Nock is threatening right now, playing spoiler to these 2 players at this moment in time.
Yep, and we can see SUNGBIN trying only to catch up. He is now within draft range of Nock, so he can definitely do some catch up. This is the tricky part of Terracotta Twister. We've seen a lot of attacks come in around these turns.
NEAL!
NEAL!
He's just insane. He actually took the narrowest turn you could ever want, and he actually doesn't mess it up at all, maintaining that lead. 500 meters to go. Nock looking for a draft attack here with JiMin. The blocks are real from NEAL, though.
Wow, but Ding manages to come in, and he's going to get that 1st place finish, and NEAL, he's going to take that 2nd place, but the NEAL build, man, that was insane.
That was insane. What he just did was insanely risky. And sitting at 8 points before this, if he messed that up, I mean, he fell in the pit there or actually had that a collision with how close it was. And it was a photo finish. When you guys see the stats come up, you're going to see just how close these players were in terms of time.
Right.
It would have been catastrophic. But because he played it so well, he's able to get a top 2. Now, he moves up to 15 points here. JiMin is going to move up to 13. Ding going to pick up 10 himself and maintains 1st place here now, passing Nock. So when you look at the difference between NEAL and JiMin, it's tiny. That's the difference between 4th and 5th is 2 points right now. So we are really going into a tight one here.
Yeah, it can absolutely go anyone's way. The 1st place is only at 28 points too, so we do have a fair amount of track still left. Ding and Nock sitting at that 1-2 position, 28 and 25 points each. I don't think Ding and Nock are worried at this point right now because they have such a strong lead so far as we get ready to move into track number 5, Desert Construction Chaos.
Off we go here. This is going to be such a critical race. You know that you have at least 3 races left because it is going to end when the 1st player hits 50 because Ding is sitting 2 points behind 30. Even if he wins the next 2 races, we have a 3rd to follow. So there's still a lot of group left to play here. But for players like Perfect and Spell, now's the time to turn it on here. And unfortunately, both of them are sitting at 7th and 8th. Two of the big underdogs here. But you got to call it out, right? I mean, these players aren't performing at the level they need to. Yeah. They're going to qualify for the winner's match.
Right as you said that, Wolf. They were sitting right there in 7-8. But fortunately, they did manage to move up a little bit now, as you see a lot of players in that front. You know, you can't avoid the collisions here because the tracks are so narrow, and you have to take so many turns so fast. So we're going to see a lot of fluctuations in the distance being covered by the players.
Lots of aggressive braking here to avoid collisions. Nock maintains a pretty significant lead right now. Speed hot on his tail. Ding underperforming compared to what we saw from him in the last two tracks, sitting back at 6th place here. But Nock, man, it feels like everything is about him tonight. He has just been so consistent. Even if he doesn't cross the finish line first every time, his time spent in first seems to be the highest. And he's just being so consistent here. SUNGBIN is going to take the lead for now.
SUNGBIN right now, he's fighting it out with Speed. They're so close to each other that you can almost not even see their name tags, and the draft range really being saved by the players right now. I don't think they're using that just yet. As we enter the tricky part, this is where the collisions happen. So as you said, well, they got to press the brake button.
Yeah, they got to press the brakes here a little bit. SUNGBIN still holding on to control right now, but Nock hot on his heels here as we're starting to see some collisions come through. SUNGBIN's lead is really coming up big for him because he's not getting hit here. He's not losing that max speed as we're getting to the last final turn here. And JiMin actually taking control here with some big collisions coming through. Maybe he could get an upset win.
Yeah, JiMin, he's got that booster saved up as well. He's got a huge lead. Nock trying to go for a bit of a tricky angle. The cutting coming out to build himself more booster gains to try to catch up. But look at JiMin, he's so far ahead.
Yeah, that was a huge opportunistic moment there for JiMin as a few collisions came through. He saves his boost, is able to pass without anybody touching him. And once you get a lead like that and you've been able to hold your boost, you've got to be feeling like you're on cloud 9. You're like the luckiest person in the world. I get to pass everybody without using my resources. They then have to use resources to catch up, get back to their max speed, and I can just use my boost to guarantee I'm going to get first. So, bit of an upset win, I'd say, here for him. It's a new track record as well here so that he sets with this one at 2:09. Ding and Nock, though, in top 3. It's starting to feel like we know who's getting out of this group in the top 2 spots. Everything else, though, below, it's still up for grabs. NEAL, Speed, and SUNGBIN so neck and neck here. Only 4 points between the two of them.
Yeah, JiMin managed to get the first place finish, giving him 7 more points than NEAL, who came in 5th. So surprisingly, though, NEAL still did manage to keep that top 4 rank. Now, he is fighting it out with the 5th place position at this point, trying to maintain that point lead, but there's not a lot of tracks left anymore.
Certainly not. Our next one is going to be Forest, Zigzag, Timberland. We'll see if our top 3 continue to look the same here. For Perfect and Spell, it's time to turn it on.
We begin our track number 6 of solo match. It was cool that managed to set a new track record, so hopefully in this group as well, we'll get to see a new record.
Now this track, like the last turns we were looking at in our previous one, is very narrow, especially at the start of the first lap. That's where you start to see players who get a lead, like Speed and Nock, can actually create quite a bit of distance because everyone else who's behind them kind of gets funneled into this bottleneck where they actually end up colliding with each other with no one going for additional acceleration like Insu yesterday. Those collisions can start to add up. Now, I say that NEAL is able to sneak his way here into first place as Speed actually goes for an aggressive attack onto Nock here and does not succeed and will give up his 2nd place.
Yeah, NEAL and Speed, it's really crucial that they're in the top 3 right now because these two players are fighting for that top 4 spot. NEAL sitting at 4th place with 18 points. Speed only 1 point behind in 5th place. So if NEAL gets that first place finish over Speed, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, it really is. Ding as well, you know, our current leader, he is looking to end up getting in here in top 4 to put himself in one first place finish of ending this series. But unfortunately, down in 6th right now is NEAL. Looks like nobody can crack this guy right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely out of draft range for Nock, who's in 2nd place. Nock doing a fantastic job blocking out JiMin and Perfect from overtaking him.
Yeah, NEAL's just up there like, thank you guys very much. I have this much of a lead in this narrow bottleneck that you guys just keep bumping into each other. I'm so far away from everybody that it just doesn't matter. And if he can maintain the range here away from the draft, it's just so hard to catch up as Nock trying to get ahead. You can see Nox like, I want to take these inners, but Spell is blocking me, and Neil's like, thank you very much. I've got a sweeper in solos.
Everyone is just sweeping each other right now because they're trying to get the better angle to go across, but everyone keeps coming and saying, nope, nope, you're not going ahead of me. And NEAL is alone sitting up there as a king, still uncontested. As long as he doesn't make a mistake, I don't think he's going to give a draft range.
Doesn't look likely, as NEAL is just in full control here. No one anywhere near. You can see even in picture-in-picture, NEAL's first-person view here and how aggressively he's taking these turns while he has that lead. He knows he could take these because he's not going to collide. Nock pulling ahead of Spell here, too. Looks like he's actually going to grab second as a collision, unfortunately, coming through as well. SUNGBIN dropping back.
Yeah, that's been sent Spell back all the way, but Nog still maintaining that lead in second place. It seems like NEAL's going to come in at first, followed by Nog, SUNGBIN, and DDing for the top 4.
Huge here for NEAL. His first place finish of the group will take a 28-point score. Nog moving up to 37, and DDing with a 4th place finish will pick up only just 4. So
oh no,
we're getting very close.
Yeah, and Speed came in 8th place, and Speed was the guy trying to contest NEAL for that 4th place spot.
Yeah,
now the point difference.
Yeah, it's a huge turn.
It's almost over at this point. The top 4 is starting to consolidate themselves. Things are getting really heated up. Of course, Nock constantly being a consistent top 3 finisher. That's not really helping things. He's making it so that the 50 points are even closer.
NEAL here gets this win. DDing only picks up the 4 points, and I was pretty sure he was sitting at 35, but I wanted to wait to see the standings to be 100% sure. So that's really critical because he's at 39, which means that we'll have 2 races left no matter what. I always have to set the stakes for that because sometimes you can have a scenario where only one player could determine whether the group ends at that moment, and now no player has that power, at least for our next race of NEAL's track choice. But yeah, you mentioned the gap that is set here with NEAL moving massively ahead. This is really critical. Now he's got, as mentioned, his track choice of Factory Facility 5 here. As we move into our next track, we'll see if some of these players in the back of the pack can catch up, but it's looking pretty doomed right now. Off we go, NEAL. See if he can have another performance like the one he just had with the choke points there. He pulled so far ahead. He set a new record. The Spell with a good start this time, and he so desperately needs something like a first place finish.
Yeah, NEAL was going for the cuts there to build himself that lead in the booster gauge, but he knocked into one of the opponents, so that was a quick stop.
Ooh, speaking of knocking in, NEAL!
That is not good. That's going to set him back so far behind as we see 7 players just doing their own thing while NEAL is back in who knows where.
Yeah, Speed is definitely super hyped about this because that's exactly what he needs to happen for his qualification. Now, that alone isn't enough. If NEAL drops down to 8th and takes a -1, he is still going to have to perform well. And that, so far, he is looking to maybe pick up a top 3. This is a single lap race here. Unfortunately, NEAL on his choice falls so behind on it that it might be too short to recover.
Yeah, not only that, Spell fell behind as well, so now he is the 8th place finisher, it seems like already. So right now, it's all about the fight in the top 5. We have DDing leading out so strong, which is huge because DDing is the group leader at 39 points. If he takes 10 points here, then he's pretty much almost guaranteeing a 2-track finisher.
Yeah, looks like it. DDing still in control. Nock hot on his heels here, but we don't have a lot of track left. 500 meters here. Nock needs to get this draft to succeed, but DDing pulls him out of the range.
No, SUNGBIN could not get the range for the draft, and DDing manages to come in first place. A lot of fire being put right now on the heels of players.
That was really well played by DDing because he knew that at that final turn, if he takes an unexpected path, rather than taking the hardest inner to guarantee the victory there because he has a lead and he just wants to push further into the lead, he's like, if I just deny this draft, even if I take a slightly slower turn, the draft is the only way they can win as long as I play this right, and that he did. So he's going to move up to 49, as you said, so only needs to finish in top 6 to end this and take his position in the next round, the winner's match, of course. For NEAL, even with that rough start, he's still going to maintain top 3 here. The difference between JiMin and SUNGBIN is 3 points. Speed could still qualify here if he gets a top 2 spot.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's anyone's game, but it's looking like we're likely going to have one last track of DDing's choice, which makes things worse because if DDing's picking it, you assume he's going to get top 6.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages you get from taking that first place spot. We're still working on getting all the players here finalized in the lobby.
Right.
This is so intense right now.
Yes, and our fan was able to predict DDing coming in, moving up into the upper bracket of this group of 16. You can see the fingers actually shaking out of the nerves of how close and fierce this competition is so far in the solo match.
It has been really intense, and NEAL is now rejoined in the lobby. Had a problem getting into it, but now he is set and ready to go. We're going to be jumping into this one very soon. But for these players at the back of the standings, for Perfect, for Spell, you know, it has been a rough time. I think time is up now because, as you mentioned, DDing only needs to get top 6, and this one is done and dusted. It's over as we move into what will likely be our last track, World Tour Goosewood.
Off we go into the potential game-deciding track.
Now, also, even if DDing gets bottom 2, if Nock gets top 2, it's also over. If he gets 10 points or 7 points, then it will end. So there's just a lot of things going against Perfect and Spell here. And even if Spell gets first place, he won't be able to pass Speed.
And he's doing that right now. Nock is first place with NEAL.
Yeah. Really, right now, this is kind of a race in terms of qualification between JiMin and SUNGBIN. I think that's, and Speed, of course, we mentioned earlier. These are the 3 players who we have our eyes on the most right now because we are so close to moving up to winners or dropping down to losers, all decided by this one race.
Wow, DDing was sitting in 6th place, but he manages to catch up to all the way in the front, now contesting that top 4 spot. Oh, Nock coming in with a completely different angle. However, he didn't manage to break into first place.
Yeah, DDing is actually starting to pull a pretty big advantage off here, but he's still in draft range, so I think that might be short-lived here. He's going to have to try to take some unexpected angles here to avoid it. As Nock, man, he just sees the future. He's avoiding everything here as we are all just trying to chain these drafts together around these few turns as we're on the final lap right now. Speed in 2nd place. This is massive for him. If he gets this top 2 finish, that's exactly what he needs to qualify. He's actually in first now.
Speed, he's definitely putting on the pressure right now. Perfect coming in as well. Everyone's still within a fairly draftable range, I would say. And this is the final lap, the final moment.
Oh, Speed in first, SUNGBIN down in 6th. Speed, man, he has got to be feeling good about his chances. If he can just keep himself composed here and maintain this spot, I think he's going to the winner's match.
JiMin, however, he's going to be able to overtake and set behind the momentum of Speed a bit. Now Speed coming in again with the draft, trying to overtake, and he just needs to maintain it. He's blocking JiMin, and there it is. First place finish for Speed.
Yeah, and Speed and, you know, the difference here is between Speed and JiMin and SUNGBIN is so negligible. But with SUNGBIN, both his weak finish here and Speed and JiMin's finishes coming through, I think that is going to guarantee themselves top 4. We'll have to wait till all the points come through. I want to confirm this 100% as we have things come up on the screen. But this is exactly where you wanted to be if you were Speed. A track record to clutch it out and push yourself into top 4. So let's take a look. Yeah, there he is, 1 point ahead of NEAL at this moment in time. NEAL is not going to the winner's match. Speed and JiMin are both going to, with great top 2 finishes here, push up to top 4. And SUNGBIN with a really rough performance. He is also knocked down to losers here. As who would have thought DDing would be our first place winner tonight? Nock and DDing, definitely the top 2 racers, trading blows tonight. But man, it came out to one final clutch from Speed and JiMin. 2 players who looked like might not even make it.
A complete upset definitely happened here in round of 16, match number 2. 4 players that we thought, you know, some of them, sure, we would see them moving on to the winner's bracket, but as you said, DDing coming in with such a dominating, consistent performance today, and Speed with the final clutch, being able to beat out NEAL by a single point. It was so close.
Now, only Nock, who could see the future, could have seen this one coming.
True.
But if I told somebody, like if I actually went back to an hour ago and I told you, by the way, I've seen it, I just came from the future, NEAL does not advance, but JiMin advances, you would be like, no way. I'd be like, also Speed advanced. You'd be like, all right, Wolf, like, it's not funny anymore, man.
Yeah.
But I think we had serious upsets tonight, for real. And that's like what Speed did in that final race is like the definition of clutch for solo. That's when everything is on the line, you just throw all the pressure away. You're like, I'm not even looking for a top 3, top 2 finish. I need first place. I'm going to do it, even though JiMin, who's also competing with me directly, most directly, I'm going to play it so well. SUNGBIN comes back. NEAL, unfortunately, a few mess-ups here in this group isn't going to advance. And Speed by 1 point makes it through. That is almost an unheard of story.
That is pretty much what happened here. Ding and Nok, they were consistent throughout every single match, maintaining the top 4 pretty well. But for JiMin, Speed, and NEAL and SUNGBIN, there were a lot of mess-ups. They kept trading places, getting that top 3, but sometimes going all the way down to the 8th place because of an unfortunate collision. And at the end, the players in JiMin and Speed who were able to focus harder coming into those final laps where it mattered, it really paid off because they managed to lead by just a point and 5 points for JiMin.
Now, I'd say the chances of NEAL and SUNGBIN actually advancing from losers are pretty high. These are two incredibly strong players. Going into a losers matchup where I think they are definitely some of the front runners, but unfortunately for Perfect and Spell, some of our big underdogs here, they did not perform very well in groups. Like, they narrowly got through, similar to how Speed finished here. And the performance for them, they were almost invisible in the group, unfortunately. So a lot has to change for them before they go into that losers match if they're going to have any chance of advancing. They're the real Cinderella stories now.
Yeah, and the one highlight that keeps replaying in my head was the moment when NEAL, he failed to get up on that bridge and he collided, so it put him at a full stop and he had to press accelerator again. And on top of that, he missed the shortcut, so he was pretty much guaranteed that bottom 2 spot, and that really set things apart for them.
Yeah. Let's take a look at today's results and kind of sum everything up as we'll go back to a happier moment for NEAL, which was when he was able to prevent the upset here of Aura, where they took this one 2-0 at the beginning of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a match where we expected more coming in from Aura potentially, but Live SANDBOX, they found their form again, proving to be the kings.
Rox, on the other hand, despite a bit of a weakness continually here, only picking up 1 set of item, are going to be able to win it in the ace match. Big mistake there in the ace, unfortunately for FINALEe, just making it a very one-sided affair at the end of the day. And that was how our team matches went.
Yeah, Yoon, we thought we could see a lot more exciting matches from him, but unfortunately today with that big mistake, he never really got a shot. As we take a look at the standings now, Guangdong Freak strongly in the lead. Following behind is Live, SANDBOX, Aura, and Rox in that top 4.
Yeah, and for FINALEe, that loss really hurts. You know, making postseason seems very unlikely, but last place actually a possibility here. Unfortunately, a Sensation still on that 3-series losing streak. Let's see if they can bounce back later on. But now we have our winners decided. So our winners matchup is going to be Hyunsu, World, Insu, Cool, Speed, Ding, JiMin, and Nok. So I think our winners of match 1, definitely the favorites. In match 2, some big upsets.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if you're the players in match number 1 who advanced into the winner's bracket, you got to be kind of happy with today's result because you really don't want to go up against players like NEAL and SUNGBIN, Perfect. These players have done so well so far, especially in the solo matches. You have to wonder, how far can the Dark Horses take this? Are they going to continue to upset and actually become the new best solo match players in KDL?
Yeah. And there will potentially be an opportunity for revenge as well in the finals, you know. Some of these players who move up to winners might drop down and you have NEAL come up, make it through that loser bracket run. Could be incredible. We will, of course, on Wednesday have no solo match. It is our triple team match day. So that is going to be at 7 p.m. on the 26th of April. These 3 matches will be what we have then.
Yeah, some huge names coming up there. Match number 19 is going to be Planet versus Live SANDBOX. Live SANDBOX trying to keep up their win streak and hopefully catch up to the Guangdong Freaks, who will be going up against Reboot in match number 20. Will Reboot be able to finally give a loss to the Freaks? That is the question. And for the final match number 21, Sensation versus Rox. 2 Rocky teams coming in. However, Rox did manage to get a win today.
Yeah, it's weird because if you asked me a week ago, it would have been like, yeah, I think Sensation's still the favorites. Now, I don't know if I could say that, but at the same time, I think that series is, of these 3, very much the closest. I think the first 2 could end up being one-sided affairs of our very strong Live SANDBOX and Guangdong teams, but Sensation versus Rox, I think that's the one where I look and say, this definitely could go either way.
Yeah, it's definitely going to go to an ace match, right?
I think so.
Yeah, Rox, they might lose in the item mode while beating out Sensation in the speed mode, whereas Sensation, if they actually manage to beat Rox in the speed mode, that is going to set a lot of good momentum for them because I'm sure it's going to be a morale boost knowing that their opponents can't really do item much.
So that's going to do it for this week's Kartrider Drift League preseason. I hope you guys enjoyed the start of the round of 16. We're going to be back on Wednesday with 3 team matches. We'll see you then.